Hey, how's it going? My name's Peter, and in this video, we're going to go over the most important calculator when it comes to advertising for e-commerce. Now, before we hop into that, this is not really an entry-level video. This is probably more of an intermediate level. So if you aren't familiar with the way ads work, if you aren't familiar with the core metrics of e-commerce, I would watch an earlier video called The Fundamentals of Profitable E-commerce. So go through that first and then come back here so it actually makes sense, all right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the return calculator, and this is the singular most important calculator when it comes to ads. Um, this is a really easy way to estimate and understand where your bottlenecks lie when it comes to advertising, or when you're just trying to see if advertising even makes sense, or what your profitability can be, or even forecasting. And this is all yours to use, but I'll explain how this works and why it's so important. All right. So when it comes to advertising, people often think that the ads are the most important, and they are important, but they only account for really two variables. All right. So the first variable that ads really play a part in is just how many people come to your site, right? If you have no website visitors, it's not going to work. So that's variable one, right? And that right here is website clicks, right? So that's one variable. The other variable is really, instead of website clicks, is, obviously how qualified the people are, this and that. But other than that, it's just the cost of your audience and the percent of people that click on an ad, or the cost of the people you're targeting. So it's really just cost of the people, percent of people that click, and then how many website visitors you actually end up getting from that. And of course, if they're qualified. But the rest of the numbers, conversion rate, average order value, customer return percentage, lifetime value, those are mostly determined by your website. Don't really have anything to do with ads. Now, of course, if you're sending unqualified people, they're not going to convert. If you're sending people that are interested in football to a website that's about baseball, they're not going to convert. So, of course, they have to be qualified, but that's pretty simple to do if you're targeting even remotely close to the right people. And really, the rest comes down to how well the site's going to convert and what that average order value is. So, this calculator actually gives you an estimated ROAS and an estimated profit or loss based on those metrics. So, I'll walk you through how to use it. And of course, you can implement this yourself, and it's going to be super, super helpful in actually figuring out whether advertising is going to work for you and what return you could actually see. So the first variable, of course, is ad spend, right? How much you're going to be spending a month. This is just determined by whatever you want to spend, right? Second variable is unique outbound click-through rate. This is the percent of people that actually click on your ad to go to the website. Any ad platform will have this number: Google, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok. And it depends on the platform what number you want. For TikTok, which is what I'm doing here as an example, 1% is good. That is considered a solid outbound click through rate. For Facebook, it's closer to 2 to 3%. That's usually what a good outbound click through rate is. All right. So 1% as an example here. We'll just put that in. Next is channel variables. So this is really variables that you don't control. You can't really control these. Ad spend you can control. The amount of people that click on your ad you can control, because if you have a good video, a good image, a good creative, good copy, you're gonna have a higher click-through rate. If you don't have those things, obviously it's gonna be lower. So you can control these. These variables you have a little control over, but not really. And the biggest one here is the cost per mil, right? And cost per mil is just the cost per every 1,000 impressions. So the cost to show your ad to 1,000 people. And it's completely different depending on the platform. Google's different than Facebook. It's different from TikTok. Again, TikTok is anywhere from like $3 to $7. Seven is definitely on the higher end. But that's something you'd see on TikTok. For a similar audience, it'd probably be like $25 on Facebook CPM for a purchase conversion campaign, right? So the CPM takes into account, of course, the quality of your ads. So if you have poor quality ads or poor engagement, your cost to show ads to people is going to be higher because the platform doesn't really want bad ads. And of course, the quality of the people you're targeting, higher income, lower income, is going to change that. The niche, whether they're interested in fashion, fitness, that's going to change because some of those are worth more than others. And just the bid and ask prices on the platform, right? The way you actually price an audience depends on the supply and demand of those audience members on each platform. So all those variables come into account when you're looking at CPM on a platform. So as an example, for TikTok, $7 would be a higher CPM for sure. But I just put that in there. So cost per 1,000 impressions, which means it costs $0.007 to reach a singular person, which means if we spent $5,000 and it costs $7 to show an ad to 1,000 people, ultimately, we'd be at 714,000 impressions, right? And of those 714,000 impressions, 7,000 people click because 1% of those initial 714,000 people end up clicking, right? So that's all those variables. So now we have 7,000 website clicks. Now you get 7,000 people to the site. That's great. Now we get into website variables. And this, is really determined mostly by your price, your niche, and the way your website looks. So obviously, a $10,000 sofa is going to have a lot lower conversion rate than a $50 t-shirt. Very different. But of course, your offer and how good of quality your sales funnel is going to really impact this as well. All right. So this was actually someone we spoke to earlier today. They had a 2.11 conversion rate and $120 AOV. So 2%, that's actually quite good for $120 AOV. And so with 2% of people converted, of those 7,000 clicks, 2% converted, therefore 151 conversions, right? Really simple. And of those 151 conversions, each person bought around $120 worth of product. So ultimately, our revenue would be $18,000. All right. So you can see how this becomes really, really useful because just based off the average metrics on your site and kind of estimated metrics from the platform you want to advertise on, you can see what your revenue would be. Now, of course, we get into the outcomes. So your ad profit or loss, that's really simple. We just take that revenue minus your ad spend. So in this case, it'd be 13,000. And then our ROAS, of course, just the division of that, right? So 18 over 5. So that kind of gives us a good number there as far as our return there on our initial ad spend. And then, of course, our cost per acquisition. So how much it costs to acquire one customer, $33 in this case, quite good. And of course, this is kind of for us to see if we charge X percent, for our clients, what would be that billable of that amount we generate. So that's kind of just a number there that we use to estimate what that actual billable would be. And then you can get into a 3-month forecast and actually play with these numbers on a bigger scale. But the main point of this is go ahead, throw your numbers in, throw your conversion rate in, throw your AOV in, and see where you're at, right? So you can see, you can look up for your niche on Google. Okay, on TikTok, what's the average CPM for apparel niche, beauty niche? What's the average CPM on Instagram for the skincare niche, right? And you can put in those average metrics and kind of see based off your website metrics and your ad spend, what ROAS you'd see more or less on average with those numbers. So whenever we chat with prospects or even with clients, we'll go ahead, put their numbers in and see where the bottleneck is. So for example, if you only had 0.5% conversion, you're actually not even profitable. You have negative $683. And you might think, oh, it's because our ads aren't working. No, it's actually not because your ads aren't working. And this is a big misconception. When people think their ads aren't working, it's actually a lot of times their conversion's too low or their AOV is too low, but they don't realize that. So in this case, conversion's obviously too low. Even if we had 2% of people clicking, we wouldn't be that profitable. Only 1.73x return. If we had 3% of people, okay, now it's looking better, but now we need 3 times the initial clicks we were getting before, which is going to be a lot harder to do, right? So when you see that your variable for conversion is too low, you need to increase that. Maybe AOV is too low, right? So maybe your AOV is only $25, even $20, right? That's not going to be profitable. It's just not. You're not selling enough per order. So now you can see where your bottleneck is. Oh, these numbers look pretty good up here, but your AOV is just way too low. All right. And you can see the same thing for click through. So maybe it is your ads. Maybe you have a 2% conversion and $100 AOV, but only 0.5% of people are clicking through your ads. Might be a little bit of profit, right? 1.43, but nothing crazy. You only have $2,000 in profit, right? So this is a really easy way to identify what the issue is. And really, there's going to be 4 potential bottlenecks. Bottleneck 1 is your click-through rate. The percent of people that clicking on your ads could be too low. You just have to look up for whatever platform you're on and whatever niche you're in, whether your click-through is below or above that industry average. So, maybe it's above, maybe it's below, but if this number isn't lining up, this is one bottleneck. There's not enough people clicking on your ads. What can fix that? better copy, better creative, better offer, better audience targeting. It's going to be one of those 4 things. All right. The other variable is CPM, so the cost to show your ads to people. Now, this is something, again, you don't have much control over, right? This is a channel variable. This is really mostly determined by the channel. Of course, depending on who you target, this will change, but for the most part, it's really a channel variable. So if the CPM is too high, or you notice that you're paying a crazy amount for your audience, you might look at a different channel, or you might look at targeting different, cheaper audiences, or changing the objective in which you want those audience members to take. Maybe instead of purchase, you go to add to cart because that's going to be a lot cheaper per audience impression, right? So this is the second bottleneck that can occur. The third, conversion rate, which we already talked about, right? If people are converting at 0.5%, things are not going to go well no matter what. So you have to make sure that the conversion rate's up. How do you do that? That's going to be price. That's going to be niche. You have to see what your niche is, and that's going to be your sales funnel, right? Those are all things that are going to affect it. And of course, the people who you're sending. And finally, AOV. If people aren't buying enough from your store per visit, it's never going to make sense, right? So you have to make sure that that AOV is in a place where you're actually going to be profitable for each visitor that you get, right? And those are literally, quite literally, the only four bottlenecks that can happen, especially top of funnel. But for the most part in e-commerce, this is the 4 things that need to be in alignment, right? The other ones are lifetime value, so making sure people come back to buy more. And of course, margin, right? So if you're below a 50% margin, advertising, unless you're doing really, really high volume, it's never going to work. It's just not. So margin, lifetime value, conversion rate, average order value, cost per mil, and unique click-through rate, those are going to be literally your only key bottlenecks. And when it comes to ads, it's really just these 4: conversion, AOV, CPM, and unique click-through. So go ahead, throw your numbers in. If you haven't started advertising yet, go ahead, look up your niche average cost and average click-through for whatever platform you're looking at advertising on. If you are advertising, go ahead, put your average numbers in. You could separate it into top of funnel, middle, bottom, or just do averages and kind of see what's actually happening, see where the bottleneck lies, because this calculator, without a doubt, will tell you what's happening and where you're actually going wrong. All right. Hope this helps. Feel free to make a copy of this document here and fill in your own calculator. And I'll talk to you on the next video.